All right, let's get right into it. As of April 1st, 2024, setting up a cannabis club is officially legal all across Germany. But here's the thing. If your plan is to do this in Bavaria, you're not just following a set of rules. No, you are running a gauntlet. The state has put together one of the toughest, most challenging regulatory mazes in the entire country, and it's all by design.
So, that's really the big question we're tackling here, isn't it? Why is Bavaria so incredibly different? Why does an application that might just sail through in another state have such a high chance of failing here? Well, it's no accident. It's a system, and it all starts with one very powerful central office.
And that office is the LGL, the Bavarian State Office for Health and Food Safety. Now, in other states, you might be dealing with local authorities, but Bavaria did something different. They centralized everything, funneling every single application through this one single agency. And what that does is it guarantees a uniform and uniformly strict interpretation of the law for every club, whether you're in the middle of Munich or a tiny village in the Alps.
Okay, so let's move on to the first and honestly the most important obstacle you're going to face, your location. This is where the Bavarian gauntlet really kicks off, and it's the place where so many hopeful clubs are stopped cold before they even get started.
You know, the biggest mistake that founders make here is all about timing. People get excited, they find a property, and they sign a lease before getting all the necessary legal approvals. I get it, it feels like you're making progress, but in Bavaria, that's a huge financial gamble that almost never, ever pays off.
And here's exactly why that's such a massive risk. You're up against what I call a double barrier. First, you've got the 200-meter rule. This isn't just a casual stroll, it's a strict, as-the-crow-flies distance from any point of entry to a school or a playground. But even if you clear that, you smack right into the second barrier, local building law. You need a special permit to change the building's official purpose, a Nutzungsänderung, and this is where local politics can, and often do, shut things down.
And this pretty much says it all, doesn't it? This feeling, which has been voiced by towns like Olching, shows you that municipalities aren't just passively waiting for you to apply. They are actively weaponizing their own legal toolkits, specifically zoning and building codes, as a defense strategy to stop clubs from ever opening their doors.
And one of the most powerful weapons they have is this word, die Veränderungssperre. Think of it as a zoning freeze. A town council can just decide to hit pause on all new building permits in an area for up to 2 years while they rethink their plans. It's an incredibly effective way to just stall and run out the clock on your cannabis club project.
So, the takeaway here is pretty stark. Your options for a location are squeezed into this incredibly narrow window. I mean, look at this table. Residential and mixed-use areas? Pretty much forget it. They're basically off limits. You're being pushed out to the edges of town into commercial and really industrial zones. And those places are often tougher for members to get to and just have fewer buildings that would even work.
So, let's imagine you've beaten the odds. You actually found a viable location in an industrial park. Great! Now you get to face the second massive hurdle, the application itself. The LGL demands 4 super detailed concepts, which I think of as the 4 pillars of any application that has a prayer of succeeding in Bavaria. The first pillar is your security concept. The goal sounds simple, but the way you have to prove it is anything but. You have to demonstrate beyond any doubt that your facility and everything inside it is completely secure from theft and totally inaccessible to anyone underage. And these requirements, they are not suggestions. We're talking serious, high-security stuff. Your doors and windows have to be at least resistance class RC3. That's a standard meant to stop experienced burglars with tools. And your alarm system can't just be a simple alert on your phone. Nope. It has to be professionally wired to a 24/7 monitoring center, an NSL. No exceptions.
Okay, pillar number 2, the health and youth protection concept. This is where the LGL really digs in to see if you're a responsible organization. It's not about having good intentions. It's about having a concrete, documented, active plan for prevention.
And here's how you have to prove it. First, one of your members has to become an official prevention officer, and that means completing a very specific training course that's certified by Bavaria's own Health Promotion Center. Second, you need a formal, signed, written cooperation agreement with the local addiction counseling service. A friendly chat or knowing their number just isn't going to cut.
Next up is the third pillar, and this one is all about science, quality control. You've got to prove that the product you're providing to your members is safe, that it's consistent, and that it complies with every single legal limit for THC and CBD.
This requires a serious, almost clinical approach. You need a detailed plan that shows exactly how and when you're going to take samples from each harvest and send them to a lab to be tested for potency and for contaminants like mold or pesticides. On top of that, you need a formal, documented procedure for how you're going to destroy any batch that fails those tests, ensuring it never, ever gets to a member. So, let's keep building on this. Because even if you have those first 3 pillars perfectly in place, you are about to run into what is maybe the most uniquely Bavarian hurdle of them all. It's a test that cuts right to the heart of how your club is even structured. And that test is all about this term, active Mitwirkung, which means active participation. Now, the federal law mentions this idea, but Bavaria interprets it with an iron fist. What it means here is that every single member of your club has to physically participate in the hands-on work of growing the cannabis. This rule is specifically designed to make passive memberships, where you just pay a fee and collect, completely illegal.
And this isn't some theoretical problem. It has very real consequences. Just look at the CSC Minga Club. Their application was rejected, and this was a big reason why. As you can see, they made the mistake of thinking things like administrative help or paying extra fees could count as participation. The Bavarian rule is crystal clear. No, only hands-on work in the garden, trimming, watering, harvesting counts. Everybody has to get their hands dirty.
So to even pass this test, you effectively have to create a 5th concept document, a Mitwirkungskonzept. And this plan has to spell out the nitty-gritty logistics. We're talking a detailed shift schedule for up to 500 people, a clear list of the specific jobs they'll be doing, and a rock-solid system for logging all their hours to prove it when the LGL comes knocking for an inspection.
All right, after you've navigated the location nightmare and you've built all 5 of your conceptual pillars, you finally reach the end of the gauntlet, the actual application, which, you guessed it, comes with its own steep costs and long timelines. First up, let's talk about the money you'll spend before you even submit a single piece of paper. Remember that certified prevention officer we talked about? Well, just that mandatory training course for that one person is going to set your club back around 600 euros.
And then you have the application fee itself. Just to get the LGL to start looking at your paperwork, you have to pay them an upfront fee that's usually somewhere between 2,700 and 3,500 euros. And here's the kicker. That money is non-refundable. You don't get it back even if they reject you.
And finally, let's talk about the one thing you can't buy, time. Officially, on paper, the federal law says the processing time is 3 months. But this is Bavaria. The reality is totally different. Because the LGL is so incredibly thorough and will have endless follow-up questions, a realistic timeline for just getting your permit is more like 6 to 9 months. When you add in the time to find a location and build out your facility, you're easily looking at a year or more of hard work before your first plant is legally harvested.
Which brings us right back to where we started. The process in Bavaria isn't just a checklist of tasks, it is an endurance test. It's a gauntlet that has been intentionally designed with high legal, financial, and administrative walls to make sure that only the most dedicated, most prepared, and most serious applicants can possibly make it through. So the real question you have to ask yourself isn't just, can we meet the rules, but is our plan truly tough enough to survive?